A millionaire man enters his own restaurant, and nobody sees him. 45 minutes waiting, invisible, as if he did not exist. The worst table, the cruel silence, the eyes that pass by. That is how Daniel felt in the empire that he himself built. But when the humiliation hit rock bottom, something woke up. A truth so painful that it would change everything forever. A woman crying in the kitchen, an old man ignored. And Daniel, with a broken heart, understood. He had lost the most important thing. This is the story of how a man recovered his soul and saved the souls of hundreds more. Like this, if it touched your soul, it is more than a click. It is a silent hug between those of us who understand that dignity has no price. Comment how you think this story is going to end. And if you have not subscribed yet, it costs you nothing. But for us, it means the whole world. Thank you for being here. Thank you for feeling with us. The navy blue jacket smelled new. Daniel Chun had bought it that same morning in a work uniform store, along with worn jeans that he would never use in his daily life, and a black cap without a brand. In front of the mirror of his apartment in the Upper East Side, he observed himself with attention. The millionaire founder of Savory, the most successful restaurant chain in the USA, had disappeared. In his place remained an anonymous 42-year-old man with the appearance of a tired delivery man at the end of a long shift. He adjusted the thermal backpack over his shoulders. The weight was real. He had filled it with empty boxes, so it would look authentic. He took a deep breath. It was not the first time Daniel experimented with social invisibility, but this time the stage was different. He was going to enter his own restaurant, the flagship of his empire, located in the middle of downtown New York. The taxi dropped him off 2 blocks away. He preferred to walk. The sidewalks were full of tourists and New Yorkers, enjoying the mild October afternoon. Daniel observed the shop windows, the terraces, the relaxed faces of those walking without hurry. Nobody recognized him. Nobody looked at him twice. When he arrived in front of the facade of Savory downtown, he stopped for a moment. The gold letters sparkled under the soft light of the sunset. He remembered the day of the opening, almost 8 years ago. Champagne, speeches, photographers. He had built this from zero, investing every dollar he had, risking everything. And now that same place would receive him without knowing who he was. He pushed the glass door. The interior of the restaurant was perfect. Exposed brick walls, dark wood tables, industrial lamps hanging from the high ceiling. The aroma of fresh bread mixed with the discreet perfume of scented candles. Jazz music played, barely audible. Daniel stood by the entrance, waiting. A young couple dressed with informal elegance, he with a leather jacket, she with a cream-colored dress, entered behind him. The receptionist, a blonde woman of about 30 years with a professional smile, looked up immediately. "Good afternoon. Welcome to Savory. Do you have a reservation?" "No, but it is only 2 of us," the man responded with ease. "Of course, let me see." "Yes, I have a beautiful table by the window. Follow me, please." The couple passed by Daniel without looking at him. The receptionist did not either. He remained motionless, with the thermal backpack hanging from one shoulder, feeling how the weight of anonymity sank him slightly into the floor. 2 minutes passed, then 5. Another couple entered, this time older, with shopping bags from Bloomingdale's. Same scene, immediate smile, table assigned in seconds, cordial company toward the interior of the room. Daniel cleared his throat softly. "Excuse me." The receptionist turned her head as if surprised to find him there. "Yes? I would like a table for one, please." She evaluated him from top to bottom in less than 2 seconds. Her gaze stopped on the thermal backpack, then on the torn jeans, finally on the cap. "Right now we are full. If you want, you can wait in the waiting area. We will call you." The "you" instead of "sir" did not go unnoticed. Daniel nodded without saying anything and moved toward a corner by the bar where there were 2 high stools. He sat on one, placed the backpack on the floor, and crossed his hands on his lap. From there, he observed, 45 minutes. Daniel had counted every one. He had seen 17 different groups enter. Everyone had been attended to, accommodated, served. Nobody waited more than 5 minutes. Most, not even that. A man in a grey suit with a leather briefcase. A table by the decorative fireplace, two women with expensive coats and brand-name bags, the best table at the window, a group of 4 executives talking in English, VIP area in the back. Every time someone new entered, Daniel felt a strange sting in his chest. It was not anger yet, it was something deeper, disappointment. This was his restaurant. He had designed every detail, from the layout of the tables to the selection of the music. He had personally hired the executive chef. He had spent months creating a culture of genuine hospitality, where every customer, every one, should feel welcome. What had gone wrong? The blonde receptionist passed by him 3 times. In none did she look at him. Daniel could have been a piece of furniture. At 50 minutes, when he was already starting to consider getting up and leaving without saying anything, she finally approached with a notebook in her hand. "Sorry for the wait. I have a table available." "Thank you." She led him toward the back of the room, near the swinging doors of the kitchen. It was the worst table in the place, stuck to the wall, without a view, with the constant noise of plates clashing and voices of cooks shouting orders. The air smelled like hot grease and detergent. Daniel sat down. The chair was uneven. "Someone will come to take your order soon," the receptionist said without looking at him, and walked away with fast steps. He took the phone out of his pocket, not to use it but to have something to do with his hands. He looked around. The nearby tables were occupied by people eating peacefully, talking, laughing. A young waitress with a black apron passed by carrying a tray with 3 steaming plates. Daniel raised his hand discreetly. She kept going. 10 more minutes passed. Nobody approached. They did not even bring him water. Daniel observed the waitress. Her ID said Jenna, while she attended a nearby table. Young, maybe 25 years old, hair tied in a high ponytail, professional but tired smile. She leaned slightly when talking to a man of about 50 years, dressed in a perfect white shirt. "Do you wish for anything else?" "Another glass of wine, perhaps?" The man accepted. Jenna wrote in her notebook and returned to the bar with a light step. Daniel waited another 15 minutes. 20, 30. The shift manager, a tall man of about 40 years with a dark grey suit and navy blue tie, appeared from the administrative office. Daniel recognized him immediately. Marcus Delgado, regional manager with supervision over 6 restaurants of the chain. A man of calculated smile and polished manners. Marcus scanned the room with his gaze, stopping at every important table. He greeted the group of executives with a nod. He approached the couple by the window to ask if everything was to their liking. He passed by Daniel's table, less than 2 meters away, and their eyes crossed for a fraction of a second. Marcus adjusted his tie and kept walking as if Daniel were part of the decoration. 45 minutes since he sat down. Not a glass of water, not a menu, not a single question. Daniel closed his eyes and clenched his jaw. He took a deep breath, controlling the wave of frustration that rose through his throat. He got up with slow movements, left the thermal backpack on the chair and walked toward the exit. Nobody stopped him. Nobody asked if something had been wrong. He left Savory downtown exactly as he had entered. Invisible. Daniel's apartment was in silence. The lights of the city flickered on the other side of the window of the 18th floor. It was 11 at night. He was sitting in front of his desk, with 3 monitors on and a cup of cold coffee by his side. He opened the internal management panel of Savory, a platform developed specifically to monitor all the operations of the 43 restaurants. Sales, inventories, shifts, payrolls, everything connected in real time. But what Daniel was looking for was in another section, the system of customer reviews and comments. He typed Savory New York Downtown in the search engine, the screen filled with gold stars, 4.2 out of 5. Recent comments praised the food, the atmosphere, the attention. Everything looked perfect, too perfect. Daniel knew the numbers. He knew that a restaurant with that volume of customers always had complaints, no matter how small. It was statistically impossible to maintain such a high rating without significant variations. He moved the cursor toward the advanced configuration menu. There was a filter that few people in the company knew, show all evaluations, including unpublished. He clicked. The screen flickered. The numbers changed, from 4.2 stars to 3.1. From 847 visible reviews to 2,314 total reviews. Daniel felt his stomach sink. He began to read. The first lines took his breath away. I waited more than an hour to be attended. I saw how other people who arrived later passed first. I felt humiliated. They gave me the worst table in the restaurant next to the kitchen, even though there were empty tables in better areas. When I asked if I could change, they told me they were reserved. They were never occupied. The treatment was completely different depending on how you were dressed. I saw how they treated a couple with elegant clothes versus how they treated me. Shaming. I went with my father, an old gentleman with simple clothes. They ignored us for almost 40 minutes. We will never go back. There were hundreds of experiences like his, buried under an algorithm that hid them from public view. Daniel opened the moderation history. Each review had an automatic tag. Low engagement, non-recurring customer, negative rating without verified purchase. All apparently technical reasons to justify their exclusion from the visible average. But when he reviewed the filtering criteria, he found something worse. Keywords marked for automatic suppression. Ignored, excessive weight, different treatment, disrespect, humiliation. Someone had programmed the system to bury exactly the type of complaint that he had just experienced. Daniel opened a new window and accessed the records of other branches. New York North, Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami. The pattern repeated in 8 different restaurants, all under the regional supervision of Marcus Delgado. He expanded the search to internal human resources files. He found something that left him cold. In the last 6 months, 43 employees had resigned in the branches supervised by Marcus. The turnover rate was 47%, almost triple the chain average. There were emails from employees requesting meetings with human resources, complaints about excessive pressure, impossible goals, toxic work environment, all filed without response. Daniel closed his eyes and rubbed his face with both hands. How had he reached this point? How had he lost contact with the essence of what he had built? He remembered the first years. The first Savory had been a desperate bet, a small place in Greenwich Village with capacity for 30 people. Daniel cooked, served the tables, cleaned at closing. He knew every customer by name. He knew what they liked, how they wanted their coffee, if they preferred the table by the window or in the back. That human connection had been the heart of everything. When had it become this? Into a cold system that classified people by their appearance and treated them like numbers on a spreadsheet. He looked at the clock, past midnight, but he could not sleep. He needed to understand. He opened the internal training module. Every Savory employee had to complete a training program before attending the public. Daniel reviewed the materials of the basic course: hospitality, handling complaints, service standards. Everything looked correct. Then he found something different, an additional module titled Resource Optimization and Revenue Maximization, created 8 months ago. The author, Marcus Delgado. Daniel opened the first file. It was a PowerPoint presentation with 37 slides. The first one said, Identification of high-value customers, techniques to optimize return per table. He felt nauseous. He kept reading. The course taught employees to evaluate customers in the first 5 seconds. Clothes, accessories, body language, age. Classify them mentally into categories A, B, and C. Prioritize categories A and B. Minimize the time dedicated to category C. There were visual examples, photographs of real people, pixelated faces with labels: Customer A, executive suit, luxury watch, confident posture. Customer C, informal clothes, no visible accessories, insecure posture. Daniel felt rage burning his chest. The module had been implemented in 6 restaurants. The data showed an 18% increase in average revenue per table in those places during the first 3 months. But at what cost? He opened the last document, an internal report signed by Karen Thornton, Vice President of Operations. The title, Results Pilot Program, Customer Service Optimization. The report praised the financial results. It recommended extending the program to all branches, and at the end, a handwritten note in the margins of the scanned PDF. Keep discreet. Do not involve DC until we have more data. DC Daniel Chun. They were hiding the truth from him. Daniel closed the laptop with a sharp blow that echoed in the empty apartment. He got up and walked toward the window. New York sparkled below, unaware of everything. He leaned his forehead against the cold glass. Tomorrow, the real investigation would begin. The Savory in North Manhattan was located in a quiet residential area, surrounded by modern buildings and small family businesses. Daniel arrived at 2 in the afternoon, again dressed as a delivery man. This time, he wore a grey sweatshirt under the jacket and worn sneakers. The interior was smaller than the one downtown, with a more minimalist decoration: white walls, light oak tables, plants in ceramic pots. There was soft background music, something instrumental that Daniel did not recognize. A young waitress approached almost immediately. Her name tag said Nina. Short brown hair, freckles on her cheeks, genuine smile. "Hello? Welcome? Table for one?" "Yes, please." "Perfect, follow me." Nina led him to a table near the window. It was not the best in the place, but it was not hidden either. Daniel sat down, surprised by the difference compared to the previous day. "Here is the menu. Do you want something to drink while you decide?" "Water, please, and a black coffee." "Right away." Nina disappeared toward the bar. Daniel observed the place with attention. There were about 15 tables occupied out of the 25 available. The atmosphere was quiet, almost family-like. Maybe he had been wrong. Maybe the one downtown had been an isolated case. Then the door opened. A couple of about 35 years entered. He wore dress pants and a light blue shirt. She wore an elegant black dress and a leather bag with the visible logo of a luxury brand. Both had that air of urban confidence that Daniel knew well. Nina looked up from the bar where she was preparing Daniel's coffee. Her expression changed. The smile widened, the shoulders straightened, the movements became faster. "Good afternoon. Welcome to Savory. Do you have a reservation?" "No, but we are only 2, the woman responded. "Of course I have the perfect table for you." Nina guided them toward the most beautiful corner of the restaurant, next to a panoramic window with a view of a small park. She handed them the menus with an almost imperceptible bow. "Can I bring you something to drink? We have an excellent California white wine, perfect for this afternoon." "Sounds good," said the man. "Perfect. I also recommend the smoked ham appetizers as an entry. They are our specialty." The couple nodded, delighted. Nina took note and headed to the kitchen with a light step. She passed by Daniel's table without looking at him. His coffee still had not arrived. Daniel observed during the next 45 minutes. Nina attended the elegant couple with absolute dedication. She explained every dish on the menu, suggested pairings, brought them fresh bread without them asking, asked 3 times if everything was to their liking. Meanwhile, they brought Daniel the water and the coffee, already lukewarm, without a word. When he asked for the menu of the day, Nina simply nodded and walked away. The food arrived 20 minutes later, a pasta dish that clearly had been waiting under a heat lamp. The sauce was dry at the edges, but what really broke his heart was what he saw at the back of the room. An old man, about 70 years old, was sitting alone at a small table. He wore a worn brown coat and carried a folded newspaper under his arm. He had ordered a coffee and toast, nothing more. Nina passed by him 4 times. In none did she stop to ask if he needed something. The man raised his hand discreetly. Nina did not see him, or pretended not to see him. He waited 5 more minutes, then left a few dollars on the table and got up to leave. Passing by the bar, he murmured a thank you that nobody heard. Daniel clenched his fists under the table. He finished his meal in silence, paid in cash and left without saying goodbye. In the car, before starting the engine, he took out the phone and wrote in his notes, "Pattern confirmed. It is not a mistake. It is a system." Back in his apartment, Daniel spent the next 4 hours reviewing files. He had requested full access to all training records, internal emails, and performance evaluations from the last 12 months. What he found was worse than he had imagined. Marcus's resource optimization program was not just a series of slides. It was a complete system with tracking and metrics. Every waiter had to report weekly the average classification of their attended tables. Those who attended too many Category C tables received warnings. There was a particularly disturbing graph. It showed the correlation between customers' perceived appearance and average tip. The explicit conclusion was that employees should concentrate their efforts where there was greater economic return. Daniel found transcripts of training sessions. Marcus Delgado. It is not about being mean to anyone. It is about being strategic. If a table is going to leave a $5 tip and another 20, where would you prefer to invest your energy? Unidentified employee. But shouldn't we treat everyone equally? Marcus. In an ideal world, yes. But this is a business. We have goals to meet. Efficiency is the key word. Daniel felt something break inside him. He kept reading. There were emails between Marcus and Karen Thornton. From Marcus Delgado to Karen Thornton. Subject, results, Q2. Karen, the numbers speak for themselves. An 18% increase in revenue per table in the 6 pilot locations. I suggest full implementation in the next quarter. Attached presentation for the board. From Karen Thornton to Marcus Delgado. Subject, results, Q2. Excellent work, Marcus. We will proceed with caution. Let's keep this between us until we have a full quarter of data. Daniel is very focused on international expansion. I prefer not to distract him with minor operational details. Minor operational details. The betrayal did not come only from Marcus. It came from the top. Daniel opened another folder. Employee complaints. There were dozens, all ignored or filed with generic responses. I feel uncomfortable judging people by their appearance. This is not why I joined Savory. Laura Mendez, waitress, Chicago. The environment has become toxic. My co-workers compete for the best tables and fight over shifts. This is not a team, it is a cruel competition. Andres Vega, waiter, downtown NYC. They asked me to speed up the attention of certain tables to free space faster. We are treating people like cattle. Isabel Torres, waitress, Miami. And then he found something that pierced his chest like a knife. Yesterday I attended an old man who clearly was alone. He ordered a coffee and stayed 2 hours reading the newspaper. My supervisor told me I should have rotated him faster because he occupied a productive table. I cried in the bathroom during my break. I quit next week. Rachel Campos, waitress, Westfield. Daniel closed the laptop. He sat in the dark of his office, listening to the silence of the apartment. He had built Savory with a simple dream, to create spaces where people felt at home, where a plate of food was an excuse to connect, to breathe, to feel human. And at some point, without him realizing it, that dream had become a money-making machine that crushed exactly what it should protect. He took out his phone and typed an address into the GPS. Westfield, Western area. He had to meet Rachel. The Savory in Westfield was the smallest in the entire chain. Located on the outskirts, in an area of offices and shopping centers, it mainly served employees at lunch hour and families on weekends. Daniel arrived on a Wednesday at 4 in the afternoon, in the calm between lunch and dinner. The place was almost empty, only 3 tables occupied. The waitress who received him was young, about 23 years old. Blonde hair tied in a braid, tired green eyes, slow movements as if every gesture required a conscious effort. Her tag said, Rachel. Welcome, she said with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Table for 1. Yes, thank you. She guided him to a table by the window. Daniel sat down and observed her face with attention. There was something broken in her expression, a sadness she tried to hide behind professionalism. What do you wish to have? A coffee, please, and do you have a moment to chat? Rachel blinked, surprised. To chat? Yes, just a minute. I'm not in a hurry. She looked toward the kitchen, nervous, then back at Daniel. I guess so. There are not many people now. She sat in the chair in front of him, with her hands interlaced on her lap. Daniel noticed she had bitten nails. Have you been working here for a long time? He asked softly. 8 months. Do you like it? Rachel looked down. There was a long silence. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. At the beginning, yes, I thought it would be different, that it would be, I don't know, special. I had read about Savory, about how the founder wanted to create a home away from home. That is what it said in the interview. And now, she swallowed. Her eyes became moist. Now I hate every shift. Daniel felt something twist in his stomach. Why? Rachel looked at him directly for the first time. There was pain in those green eyes, because they forced me to become someone I do not want to be. They taught me to look at people and decide in 5 seconds if they deserve my attention or not, to smile more to the one who dresses better, to rush the one who orders little, to treat human beings like transactions. She wiped a tear with the back of her hand. 2 weeks ago, an old man came, alone. He ordered a tea and toast. He sat at that table there. She pointed toward the corner. My supervisor told me to rotate him fast, to not waste time with him, because there were more profitable tables available. Her voice broke. But I couldn't. I sat with him a few minutes while there was nobody. He told me his wife had passed away 3 months before, and that going out to have tea was his way of feeling less alone. When he left $20 tip for a $7 bill, and a little paper that said, "Thank you for letting me sit in a warm place." Rachel hid her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook. Daniel felt his throat close. He reached out and touched her arm gently. "It is not your fault." "No." She looked up, her eyes red. "I am the one who looks at them and classifies them. I am the one who decides who matters and who doesn't, every day, in every shift." "They taught you wrong," Daniel said with firmness. "They made you believe that was necessary. But it is not." "Then why does everyone do it? It is not just here. I talked with waiters from other branches. It is the same everywhere. It is the system." Daniel nodded slowly. "When do you quit?" Rachel looked at him surprised. "How do you know that?" "You put it in an email." She frowned. "Who are you?" Daniel hesitated. Then he took off his cap and left it on the table. "Someone who needed to hear this, and who promises you that things are going to change." Before Rachel could respond, the manager of the place came out of the office, a man of about 40 years with glasses and a severe expression. He looked at Rachel with disapproval. "Rachel, you have other tables." "I'm coming," she responded, getting up quickly. Daniel stopped her with a gesture. "Wait, is that your supervisor?" "Yes." "Was he the one who asked you to rotate the old man?" Rachel nodded, uncomfortable. Daniel got up. He took out his wallet and left $50 on the table. "Thank you, Rachel, for being honest and for caring." He left the restaurant with a heavy heart, but also with something new burning in his chest, an absolute determination. Back at the headquarters of Savory, Daniel called an emergency meeting with the technology team. It was 10 at night on a Thursday, but nobody dared to refuse when the founder called. "I need full access to the review system," he said without preamble. "Source code, filter configuration, moderation algorithms, everything." The technology director, a bald man of about 50 years named Javier, typed nervously on his laptop. "Mr. Chun, the review system has multiple layers of—" "Javier. Now." 10 minutes later, Daniel was in front of 3 screens showing the back-end code of the system. He was not an expert programmer, but he understood enough. There it was, a function called filter negative reviews with specific parameters. If review.rating 3 and customer.frequency pars low. Review.status are hidden. If review contains ignored, wait, disrespect, different treatment, review status, pending review, review.autopublish, reviews false. "Who authorized this?" Daniel asked with a dangerously calm voice. Javier swallowed. "It came as a request from the Vice President of Operations 8 months ago. It said it was to filter spam and fraudulent reviews." And nobody questioned that ignored and wait are words that a real customer would use in a legitimate complaint. Silence. Daniel opened another window, the Register of Executive Decisions. He found the approval digitally signed by Karen Thornton. Subject: Implementation Advanced Moderation System. Justification: protect the brand reputation against competitive attacks and improve public perception through intelligent filtering of non-constructive negative content. It was corporate language for hiding the complaints. Daniel kept investigating. He found emails between Karen and Marcus where they discussed how to manage the public narrative while optimizing internal operations. There was a particularly revealing attachment, an Excel document with the title Cost-Benefit Analysis, Universal Satisfaction versus Strategic Prioritization. The conclusion was brutal. Attending all customers equally resulted in 12% less revenue per hour than prioritizing high-value customers. Daniel closed the laptop with force. "Javier, I want you to restore all hidden reviews right now." "But sir, that is going to—" "Now." Javier nodded and began to type. 30 minutes later, the screens showed the real numbers. Savory Downtown, NYC, from 4.2 to 2.9 stars. Savory Chicago, from 4.3 to 3.0 stars. Savory Miami, from 4.1 to 3.2 stars. And so in 8 different restaurants. Daniel rubbed his face with both hands. The damage was deep. Years of brand building, destroyed by greed disguised as efficiency. He took out his phone and wrote 2 messages. To Marcus Delgado, meeting tomorrow 9 a.m. in my office, mandatory attendance. To Karen Thornton, the same, do not miss it. Then he wrote a 3rd message, this one to his personal assistant. Prepare a surprise visit to Savory Downtown, NYC. Saturday night, full shift. I want to see everything. Saturday arrived cold and rainy. Daniel dressed the same as the previous times. Navy blue jacket, worn jeans, black cap. But this time he carried something different in his inside pocket. A small button camera, the type private investigators use. Savory Downtown was full when he arrived at 9 at night. There was a line of people waiting at the entrance, protected under an awning from the downpour. Daniel joined the line, raising the collar of his jacket against the wind. The same blonde receptionist from the first time managed the entrance. When it was his turn, Daniel spoke with a neutral voice. "Table for 1, please." She evaluated him with a quick look, too quick to be unconscious, and checked her tablet. "You will have to wait about 30 minutes. There are many people." Daniel looked toward the interior of the restaurant. There were at least 4 empty tables in visible areas. "I see free tables there," he pointed. "They are reserved." "At what time?" The receptionist frowned, annoyed by the persistence. "Reserved is reserved. If you want to wait, fine. If not—" She left the sentence in the air. Daniel nodded and stepped aside toward the waiting area. He discreetly activated the hidden camera. During the next 45 minutes, he observed and recorded. A young couple with brand-name clothes entered, without a reservation. They gave them one of the reserved tables in less than 3 minutes. 3 executives in suits. Immediate table. Bottle of wine recommended by the sommelier. A group of 6 middle-aged people, laughing and talking in English with a British accent. VIP table in the back. Preferential attention. Meanwhile, Daniel and 5 other people, a man of about 60 years with a worn coat, a young woman in a cleaning uniform, an old couple with supermarket bags, kept waiting in line. Finally, the receptionist called him. "Table for 1, this way." She led him to the same place as the first time, stuck to the kitchen doors. The noise was deafening, the heat suffocating, the smell of grease penetrating. Daniel sat down without protesting. 20 minutes passed before someone approached. It was not Jenna this time, but a young waiter with deep, dark circles and hurried movements. His tag said Tyler. "What are you going to order?" he asked without making eye contact with the notebook already open. "The menu of the day." "To drink?" "Water." Tyler wrote down and walked away without another word. Daniel observed how he attended other tables. With some customers he was polite, even kind. With others, those who wore expensive clothes, those who ordered expensive wine, he transformed. Wide smiles, detailed recommendations, constant attention. The food arrived 35 minutes later. The dish was cold at the edges. Clearly it had waited under the heat lamp while Tyler attended priority tables. Daniel ate slowly, observing every detail. Marcus Delgado appeared at 10, perfect in his grey suit and perfectly tied tie. He walked the room like a general inspecting troops, stopping at important tables, nodding with approval when he saw empty wine glasses that meant more orders. He passed by Daniel. Their gazes crossed briefly. Marcus kept walking. When Tyler returned to remove the plate, Daniel spoke in a low voice. "Can I ask you a question?" Tyler stopped, surprised. "I guess." "How many hours have you been working today?" The young man blinked. 12. "I started at 10 in the morning. Is it normal?" Tyler looked toward where Marcus was, then back to Daniel. He lowered his voice. "Saturdays, yes. They time us, you know. How long we take with each table. If we delay with the tables that spend little, they call our attention." "Have they called your attention?" 3 times this month they told me I have to optimize my time, that I cannot waste resources on—" He stopped, uncomfortable. "On what?" Tyler swallowed. "On people who only order the menu of the day and water." The words fell like stones between them. Daniel nodded slowly. He left $40 on the table, double the bill, and got up. "Thank you for your honesty, Tyler." He left Savory downtown for the last time as an invisible man. Tomorrow he would return as himself. Sunday at 11 in the morning, Daniel entered Savory downtown through the main door. This time he dressed as what he was: dark pants, white shirt, leather jacket, no disguise, no masks. The restaurant was in full brunch service. Families with children, young couples, groups of friends. The atmosphere was happy, with the smell of fresh coffee and pastries. The blonde receptionist recognized him immediately. Her eyes opened with surprise and some alarm. "Mr. John, we did not know that." "You do not need to know," Daniel interrupted calmly. "I just need a table, the worst one you have." "Excuse me?" "I want the table next to the kitchen, the one you give to people who do not matter." The woman's face turned pale. "Sir, I don't—" "Now." She led him with trembling hands to the cursed table, the same one where he had been sitting twice. Daniel settled in, crossed his hands over the table, and waited. He did not have to wait long. Marcus Delgado appeared from the office, adjusting his tie, with the professional smile ready. When he saw Daniel, the smile faltered just a second before recovering. "Mr. Chun, what a surprise. If we had known you were coming, we would have prepared—" "Sit down, Marcus. It was not a request." Marcus sat in the chair in front of him, maintaining composure but with visible tension in his shoulders. "How can I help you?" Daniel took out his phone and placed it on the table. On the screen, a list of numbers. 45 minutes average wait for customers classified as Category C. 7 minutes for Category A. Can you explain to me why? Marcus blinked. "I'm not sure I understand." "The optimization program you implemented in 6 restaurants, the metrics, the timed intervals, the classification of customers by appearance. Does it sound familiar?" The color left Marcus's face. "Mr. Chun, that is. It was an initiative to improve operational efficiency. The numbers show that you earned 18% more revenue by treating people like trash. Is that efficiency to you? With all respect, it is a business. We have to prioritize limited resources toward who dresses better, toward who looks like they have more money." Marcus clenched his jaw. "It is economic common sense. It is discrimination." The word fell like a hammer. Several people at nearby tables turned to look. Daniel continued, his voice calm but implacable. "I have been here 3 times this week, dressed as a delivery man. I waited 45 minutes the first time. They gave me this table, the worst in the restaurant. You passed by me, Marcus. You looked at me directly, and you kept walking as if I were invisible." Marcus opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The second time was worse. 45 minutes without water, without a menu, without a single question. I saw how Jenna attended other tables with dedication, while I was part of the furniture. And you again saw me and did nothing. "Mr. Chun, I don't—" "The third time," Daniel continued, his voice firmer, "was yesterday night. I recorded everything. The reserved tables you give to who dresses well. The differential treatment. Tyler working 12 hours and being pressured to optimize his time, ignoring certain customers. He took the small camera out of his pocket and placed it on the table next to the phone. I have proof of everything, Marcus. Video, audio, time logs. And it is not just here. It is 8 restaurants. Hundreds of customers treated as second-class citizens because they do not meet your value criteria. Marcus swallowed with difficulty. It was approved by Karen. She signed. I know. She will also have her conversation. But now we are talking about you. The restaurant had fallen silent. The diners observed the scene with curiosity and some discomfort. Daniel stood up. His voice, although calm, resonated in the space. When I founded Savory, I had a simple principle. Every person who crossed that door deserved to feel welcome. It did not matter if they came from an executive meeting or from cleaning floors. It did not matter if they ordered caviar or black coffee. Each one deserved dignity, respect, and attention. He looked around the room, making eye contact with employees and customers. You turned that into a transaction. You taught these people to look at human beings and calculate their value in 5 seconds, to smile more to who can pay more, to rush who occupies space without producing enough. He turned to Marcus. Not only did you fail to represent the values of this company, you failed as a human being. Marcus got up, trying to recover some composure. If you are firing me, I need it to be formal with... I am not firing you yet, Marcus. First, I want you to look around. Look at each of these people. Customers who trusted us, employees who believed in our vision, and tell me, was it worth it? Was that extra 18% worth it? Marcus did not respond. His hands shook slightly. Daniel took out his wallet, left $100 on the table, and walked toward the exit. At the door, he stopped and turned one last time. Tomorrow first thing, I want your resignation on my desk, and the full list of all managers who implemented your program. He left the restaurant under the gaze of 50 silent witnesses. Monday morning, Daniel's office was full of nervous people. Marcus had sent his resignation letter at 6 a.m. Along with it, a list of 11 names, regional managers and supervisors who had implemented the optimization program in their respective zones. Karen Thornton was the last to arrive. She entered with her chin-high, perfect grey suit, leather briefcase in hand. She sat in front of Daniel's desk, without waiting for an invitation. I guess you want explanations, she said with a controlled voice. I do not want explanations. I want to understand how we got here. Karen crossed her legs, maintaining composure. The numbers do not lie, Daniel. The program increased revenue by 18% in 6 months. Operational efficiency improved by 23%. Labor costs were reduced. At the cost of what? At the cost of making difficult decisions. You wanted international expansion. You wanted to compete with the big chains. That requires optimization, not sentimentality. Daniel leaned forward. Sentimentality? Would you call treating people with dignity sentimentality? I call sentimentality putting feelings before results. This is a business, not a charity. Savory was never just a business. Karen sighed, as if she were dealing with a stubborn child. Daniel, I respect you. You founded this from zero, I understand. But you have been so focused on the global vision that you lost sight of the operational reality. The market is brutal. Either we adapt or we die. And adapting means this? Daniel opened his laptop and turned the screen toward her. Look at these comments. Read what our customers say, what our employees feel. Karen barely gave them a glance. There will always be complaints. It is impossible to satisfy everyone. It is not about satisfying everyone. It is about not humiliating anyone, about not making someone feel invisible because of how they dress or how much they can spend. That is idealism. No, it is humanity. There was a tense silence. Karen looked at him fixedly. Are you going to fire me? No, you are going to resign. She raised an eyebrow. And if I refuse? Then I will make all of this public. The emails where you approved the program, the orders to hide negative reviews, the instructions to keep me out of it. I have everything documented, Karen. And believe me, the media will be delighted with the story. Karen clenched her jaw. For the first time, her mask of control cracked. I worked 5 years to build these operations. I turned your dream into a profitable empire. You turned my dream into an efficient nightmare." She stood up, furious. "The investors are not going to support you in this. When they see that the numbers fall, that profitability decreases, they will eat you alive." "Maybe, but I will be able to sleep at night." Karen took her briefcase and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she turned. "You are going to regret this. I already regret it, for not having seen it sooner." The door closed with a sharp blow. The following days were a whirlwind. Daniel called emergency meetings with the board of directors, where he presented all the evidence. There was initial resistance. Some members argued that the numbers justified the methods, but when Daniel threatened to make the situation public, they yielded. Marcus Delgado and the 11 managers were formally fired. Karen Thornton resigned under pressure, taking a generous severance pay in exchange for a confidentiality agreement. Savory Downtown NYC closed temporarily for renovation and retraining. The news leaked to the press. The headlines were brutal. Restaurant chain Savory closes over discrimination scandal. Millionaire CEO discovers preferential treatment system in his own restaurants. Savory, when commercial success loses its soul. The video of Daniel confronting Marcus, recorded by some diner, went viral on social media. 3 million views in 2 days. The comments were mixed. Some praised his bravery, others accused him of hypocrisy for not having better supervised his company. Daniel did not respond publicly. He was too busy rebuilding from within. He hired a new director of operations, Sofia Ramirez, a woman of 50 years with 20 years of experience in hospitality and a reputation for prioritizing organizational culture over pure numbers. Together, they designed an action plan. Complete elimination of the optimization program. New training programs centered on fundamental values. Restoration of all hidden reviews in the system. Independent audit of labor practices. Creation of an anonymous channel for employee complaints. Review of all dismissals from the last year. The 5th measure was the most important. Daniel wanted to know how many employees had been forced to leave for refusing to comply with the discriminatory system. They found 17 cases. Among them was Rachel. Daniel personally drove to Westfield on a Thursday afternoon. He had obtained Rachel's address from the human resources file. She lived in a small apartment 20 minutes from the restaurant. When she opened the door and saw him there, her eyes opened with surprise. "You? But what are you doing here? Can I come in?" Rachel hesitated, then nodded and stepped aside. The apartment was modest but cozy. Second-hand furniture, plants in the windows, family photos on the walls. They sat on a small sofa. Rachel looked at him with confusion and curiosity. "You never told me who you really were," she said in a low voice. "I'm sorry. I needed to see the truth without filters." "And did you see it?" "Worse than I imagined." Daniel told her everything: the visits in disguise, the discovery of the program, the confrontation with Marcus, the firings. Rachel listened in silence, her eyes getting wetter. "I read in the news about the closing of the downtown restaurant. I did not know that you... I should have known from the beginning. I let this grow so much that I lost control. People like you paid the price for my negligence." "It was not your fault. You did not create that system. But I allowed it. For being too focused on expanding, on competing, on growing, I forgot why I started this." Rachel wiped a tear. "Why did you come here?" Daniel took an envelope out of his jacket. "Because I want to offer you something. We reviewed all the dismissals from the last year. We found that you were forced to resign for low performance, when in reality it was because you refused to treat customers badly. That's how it was. That was not fair. And I want to compensate for it." He handed her the envelope. Rachel opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a check for the 6-month salary she had lost, plus a letter. "It is a job offer," Daniel explained, "at Savory Downtown NYC, when it reopens in 2 weeks. With the new manager, the new training program, the new culture. We need people like you. People who understand that this is about humanity, not numbers." Rachel read the letter, tears falling freely now. "Why me?" Because when everyone else was learning to classify people, you sat with a lonely old man to have tea. Because you cried in the bathroom for having to treat people like transactions. Because you never lost your soul, Rachel, and I need people to help me recover mine. She hugged him, sobbing against his shoulder. Daniel let her cry, feeling the weight of the months of guilt and pain that this young woman had carried. I will do it, Rachel whispered, but only if you promise something. What? That you will never again let this be lost, that you will fight to keep it human no matter how much it grows. Daniel nodded. I promise. 2 weeks later, savory downtown NYC reopened its doors. The facade was the same, but inside everything had changed. Not physically, the furniture, the lamps, the layout remained the same, but in the air, in the energy, in the eyes of the staff. The new manager was Thomas Vega, a man of 45 years who had worked 15 years in hospitality with a simple philosophy. True luxury is not what you offer, but how you make people feel. Daniel had interviewed him personally for 3 hours in his office. Thomas had arrived in jeans and a flannel shirt without pretenses, and when Daniel asked him what his first measure as manager would be, his response had been immediate. Learn the name of every employee and ask them what makes them happy in their work. All employees, including Jenna, Tyler, and the others who had been under the previous system, went through a 3-day retreat in a rural house in upstate New York. It was not technical training. It was something deeper. Workshops on empathy, exercises in putting oneself in the other's place, difficult conversations about their own experiences as ignored or belittled customers. The first day, Thomas gathered them in a circle and asked each one to share an experience where they had felt invisible or belittled. The initial silence was uncomfortable, but then the stories began to flow. Jenna, the waitress who had passed by Daniel without looking at him, cried during her turn. She spoke with a broken voice, wiping tears with the back of her hand. As a teenager, I worked cleaning houses with my mother. I remember the rich ladies who did not even look us in the eye when they gave us instructions. Once, a woman checked with a white glove what we had cleaned as if we were dirty. My mother smiled and nodded, but I saw her cry on the bus back. She paused, her voice shaking. I swore that I would never make anyone feel like that. And then I did exactly that. I passed by people in work clothes as if they were part of the wall. My God, what did I become? Tyler approached and placed a hand on her shoulder. Then he shared his own story. My grandmother worked all her life as a domestic worker. One day, for her 70th birthday, I took her to an elegant restaurant I had saved for months. When we arrived, the maître looked us up and down, her with her old but clean dress, me with the only decent shirt I had, and gave us the worst table, stuck to the bathrooms. All night they treated us as if we were there by mistake. He rubbed his eyes with force. My grandmother said nothing. She smiled the whole time, said the food was delicious. But I knew. I saw the humiliation in her eyes, and I promised to never, ever do that to anyone. His voice hardened. But under pressure, with Marcus timing every minute with impossible goals, I became exactly what I hated. I accelerated services, ignored tables, classified people by their clothes. I betrayed my grandmother, myself. One by one, each employee shared something. The receptionist who had been discriminated against for his foreign accent. The pastry chef who remembered being followed in expensive stores for looking suspicious. The dishwasher who had entered a bank and was treated like a potential criminal until he showed his bank statement. At the end of the second day, Thomas gave them a task. During the next 24 hours, they had to go to 3 different establishments, restaurants, stores, banks, dressed in 2 ways. First with elegant clothes, then with simple work clothes, and document the difference in treatment. The results were devastating. Jenna went to a jewelry store with an elegant dress and borrowed brand-name bag. They attended her with champagne and smiles. The next day, with jeans and a sweatshirt, they followed her with their gaze the whole time and barely spoke to her. Tyler tried in 2 restaurants. The difference in wait time was 5 minutes versus 40. When they returned and shared the experiences, the impact was deep. It was not theory. It was real, visceral, impossible to deny. Now you understand, Thomas said with a soft but firm voice. Why this matters? It is not politics. It is not correctness. It is basic humanity. And from now on, every person who crosses that door will be treated with the dignity that you yourselves would want to receive. The change was not instant or easy. The first days after the reopening, there was confusion. Some regular VIP customers, executives who had enjoyed preferential treatment for months, complained that they no longer received immediate attention or automatically assigned tables. A businessman of about 50 years, a regular customer who used to be received like royalty, complained directly to Thomas. Before, they always gave me the table by the window. Today they told me it was occupied and sat me here. The table was occupied by a couple of retirees who arrived earlier. Thomas responded with calm. When they finish their meal, we will gladly change it if you prefer. Retirees? I spend 5 times more than them in one visit. Here everyone is equally welcome, sir. Your money does not buy privileges over the dignity of others. The man left furious. Daniel received a complaint email that same night. He responded personally. In Savory, everyone is VIP. I am sorry if that does not meet your expectations, but we will not change this principle. There were more similar cases. An influencer with 100,000 followers was upset because they did not give her a preferential table or special discounts. A group of corporate lawyers cancelled their monthly reservation when they were told they could not reserve the VIP zone permanently. As Karen had predicted, there was a drop in revenue. The numbers of the first month showed a decrease of 12% compared to the period under the optimization system. The investors called an emergency meeting. Daniel faced 10 men in grey suits who looked at spreadsheets with frowned brows. "This is unsustainable," said one of them. "You are destroying value for sentimentality." "It is not sentimentality," Daniel responded. "It is real sustainability. The previous system artificially inflated profits while destroying the base of loyal customers and burning out employees. The numbers do not lie." "You are right. They do not lie." "Did you see the staff turnover rate? From 47% to 8% in 2 months. The cost of hiring and training new staff? It was reduced by 60%. The genuine reviews? They went up from 3.1 to 4.6 stars. He projected the data on the screen. "We are building real loyalty." The customers who left were transactional, looking to feel superior. The ones who are arriving now look for authenticity, and those customers return. They bring their families, they recommend the place, they build community. Those are pretty words. We need numbers. Give me 6 months. If by then the revenue does not recover and exceed the previous ones with a sustainable base, I accept any consequence. Not everyone was convinced. 2 investors sold their shares that same week, declaring publicly that Savory had lost its focus on results. But 3 others, inspired by the story and the satisfaction metrics, invested more money. One of them, an old man named Edward Santos, told Daniel, "My father had a small bakery. He treated everyone the same, the banker and the sweeper. He went bankrupt because he did not know how to manage, but he died surrounded by people who loved him. You are building what he dreamed of, a business with a heart that also works. Count on my support." Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, things began to change. Genuine reviews arrived like a constant river. They were not bought or filtered reviews. They were real experiences of real people. A woman wrote, "I came back after swearing I would never do it. The last time they humiliated me for wearing work clothes. This time they received me with a genuine smile, gave me a beautiful table, and the waitress Rachel sat with me 5 minutes just to chat. I cried at the table. This is the Savory I remembered from years ago." An old man commented, "I went alone, as I often do since I was widowed. I wore my usual clothes, nothing elegant. They gave me the best table by the window without me asking. The manager, Thomas, came to ask me about my day. For the first time in months, I did not feel invisible. I will return every week. A father. I took my 3 children, all under 10. In other places, they look at us with fear or annoyance. Here, the waitress brought them crayons and paper to draw without us asking, and when my youngest son spilled juice, she laughed and said, 'It's okay, I used to do it too.' My children left saying it was their favorite restaurant. The employees also changed. Not just in behavior, but in spirit. Staff turnover plunged. People wanted to work at Savory again. There was a waiting list for waiter positions, something that had not happened in years. Tyler confessed to Daniel during one of his surprise visits. It's strange, you know. Before, every shift was pure stress. Competing for the best tables, meeting impossible times, calculating tips before deciding how much energy to invest. I arrived home exhausted and empty. He paused, looking for the words. Now it is different. Yes, I work hard, but I don't know how to explain it. It is satisfying. Yesterday I attended a gentleman who came alone with a book. He was there 2 hours reading and drinking coffee. He did not spend much, but when he left, he thanked me 3 times. He said it had been months since he felt so comfortable in a public place. He smiled, almost embarrassed. It sounds cheesy, but that filled me more than any large tip I received before. Does it make sense? All the sense in the world, Daniel responded. You just understood why I started this. Jenna also changed. One afternoon, Daniel saw her politely decline a customer's suggestion to give him a better table than that old couple over there. With firmness but kindness, she explained that at Savory, the order of arrival and availability were the only criteria. When the customer insisted, mentioning how much he usually spent, Jenna responded with a serene smile. I appreciate your loyalty, sir, but part of what makes Savory special is that here everyone matters equally. That old couple are Martha and Anthony, customers for 3 years. They deserve their table as much as you deserve yours. The man remained silent, surprised. Then, to Jenna's surprise, he apologized. Those small moments multiplied every day, building a new culture cell by cell, interaction by interaction. 3 months after the reopening, Daniel decided to make one last visit to Savory downtown NYC. This time there was no disguise. There was no secret investigation. He arrived on a Friday night, dressed in dark jeans and a simple grey shirt. He did not warn in advance. He just wanted to dine, to experience the place like one more customer. It was 9 at night. The street was lit with old streetlights, and through the restaurant windows the warm glow of the interior lamps was visible. From outside, he heard the murmur of conversations, laughter, the tinkling of cutlery against plates. He pushed the glass door. Rachel was at the reception, checking the reservation list on the tablet. When she looked up and saw him, her face transformed completely. The professional smile became something genuine, luminous. Mr. Chun, I did not know you would come tonight. Just Daniel, please, he responded with warmth. And you did not have to know, I just wanted to dine quietly. Of course. Let me see what I have available. She checked the tablet, her finger sliding across the screen. Daniel observed her concentration, the way she slightly bit her lower lip while thinking, exactly the same as that afternoon in Westfield when she had shared her story between tears. I have a beautiful table by the window. It just became free. Does it seem okay to you? It seems perfect to me. Rachel took a menu from the station and guided him through the room. Daniel walked slowly, observing everything with attention. The restaurant was full almost entirely, but the atmosphere was completely different from his visits in disguise. There was no tension in the air. There were no waiters running with expressions of panic. There were no customers looking with impatience at their watches. In its place, there was something that could only be described as harmony. A family of 5 occupied a central table. The children drew on paper tablecloths while the parents talked. Tyler was crouched next to the youngest, admiring his drawing of a dinosaur. At another table, 2 older women with modest clothes shared a bottle of white wine. Jenna showed them the dessert menu with enthusiasm, pointing at photos and describing flavors as if she were sharing delicious secrets. Near the window in the back, a young man in a messenger uniform, thermal backpack leaning against the chair, ate quietly while checking his phone. Nobody looked at him with disapproval. Nobody rushed him. He was simply another customer enjoying his meal. And at the best table in the room, the one that used to be permanently reserved for high-level executives, an old couple celebrated something special. There was a small candle on the table. The man, about 80 years old, held his wife's hand over the white tablecloth. "Here you are," said Rachel, pointing to a table by the side window. View of the street, away from the kitchen noise, one of my favorites. Daniel sat down, feeling the weight of the solid chair, the softness of the linen tablecloth. From there he could see both the interior of the restaurant and the outside street, where New York lived its usual night. "Can I bring you something to drink while you decide?" Rachel asked, placing the menu in front of him. "A black coffee would be fine." "Thank you, Rachel." She walked away with a light but unhurried step. Daniel watched her stop at 2 tables on the way to the bar, asking with genuine interest if everything was okay, if they needed anything else. He opened the menu. The dishes were the same, but there were small changes. Notes on local ingredients, mentions of small producers, pairing suggestions that did not push toward the most expensive, but toward the most appropriate. Thomas appeared from the kitchen, drying his hands with a white kitchen towel. Seeing Daniel, he smiled broadly and approached. "Daniel, what a joy to see you. How is everything going?" "Good. But I came to see if anything really changed here, or if it was just theater for the press." Thomas sat in front of him without asking permission, with that comfortable familiarity that only arises from mutual respect. "Look for yourself. Ask anyone. The employees, the customers. They are not going to lie to you." "I already did," Daniel responded. "The last 3 months I have been reading every review, every comment. I have talked with employees in other branches, with suppliers, with customers who stopped coming and now returned." "And?" Daniel looked around the room before responding. "I am seeing something that I had not seen in years. People treating people like people, not as transactions, not as numbers, not as categories, as human beings." Thomas nodded slowly. "It is the only thing we do, actually. Everything else, the numbers, the revenue, the success, comes after. If you treat people well, if you make them feel seen and respected, everything else flows naturally." "How is the team? Tyler, Jenna, transformed?" Tyler arrived this morning 2 hours before his shift to help prepare the new coffee station. Nobody asked him. He did it because he wanted to. Jenna is studying sommelier courses on her days off. She wants to understand wine better so she can help customers choose, not to sell the most expensive. He paused, thoughtful. "And Rachel. Rachel is special. Customers ask for her specifically. Not because she is particularly fast or efficient in the traditional sense, but because she has that gift of making every person feel important. I saw a man cry last week because she remembered that a month ago he had mentioned his daughter's birthday, and she asked how the celebration had gone." Daniel felt something warm expand in his chest. Rachel returned with the coffee, placing it carefully in front of him. A small complimentary cookie came on the saucer. "Did you decide what you are going to eat?" she asked. "Surprise me. Whatever Thomas recommends today." Rachel's eyes sparkled. "Oh, the mushroom risotto is spectacular. The chef prepared it with mushrooms from a local market upstate. It has an artisan cheese that is—" She stopped, laughing. "Sorry, I get excited talking about food." "Never apologize for passion," Daniel said firmly. "It is exactly what makes this work. Genuine passion is what customers feel, even if they cannot explain it." "I will bring it right away." When he was alone with Thomas, Daniel asked something that had been in his mind for a long time. Was it difficult? The change, I mean. Unlearning all the previous system. Thomas leaned back in the chair, considering the question. At the beginning, yes, especially for those who had worked under Marcus for months. They had developed reflexes, automatic patterns of evaluation. You see someone enter, and your brain starts to classify. Clothes, accessories, posture. It is like a mental virus. How did you fight it? With constant practice and reminders. Every morning before opening, we have a 5-minute team meeting. We do not talk about numbers or sales goals. We share one thing, an experience where we felt well treated or poorly treated recently. It keeps the empathy alive. He leaned forward. And we have a simple rule. If an employee surprises themselves treating someone differently because of their appearance, they must stop, breathe, and ask themselves, how would I want to be treated? It works. Daniel smiled. It was exactly the type of practical and human approach they needed. The risotto arrived 35 minutes later. Tyler brought it personally, placing it with care on the table. "Mushroom risotto from upstate with artisan cheese," he announced. "I hope you enjoy it." "Rachel said you wanted something special." "Thank you, Tyler. How have you been?" Tyler blinked, surprised that Daniel remembered his name. "Good. Very good, actually. My grandmother came to dinner last week. I gave her the best table in the restaurant." She cried. She said she had never felt so elegant. His voice broke slightly. "I told her the whole story, what happened here, how it changed. She told me she was proud of me. It was important to hear that. She is right to be proud, and you should be too." Tyler nodded, emotional, and returned to the kitchen. Daniel tasted the risotto. It was extraordinary, creamy with the earthy flavor of the mushrooms balanced perfectly with the salt of the cheese. But what he really tasted was not the food, but the meaning behind it. Every bite represented a conscious decision to do things right, to value quality over quantity, humanity over cold efficiency. He ate slowly, observing the silent ballet of the service. The waiters moved with purpose but without frenzy. They smiled at each other. They supported each other when someone needed help. It was a real team, not just individuals competing for crumbs. When he finished, he asked for the bill. Tyler brought the leather wallet with the invoice inside. "It's on the house, Mr. Chun," he said with a shy smile. Daniel shook his head firmly. "Absolutely not. Here everyone pays, especially me." "But you are the owner." "Exactly. And if I learned anything these months, it is that precisely there is the beauty. In being one more customer, in receiving the same treatment as anyone without special privileges." He left $60 for a bill of $37. It was not ostentatious, just a genuine recognition of an exceptional service. Before leaving, Daniel stood up and walked slowly through the room, observing every corner. He stopped by the table where the old couple celebrated their anniversary. "Pardon the interruption," he said softly. "I just wanted to wish you a beautiful evening." The woman, about 75 years old, looked at him with bright eyes. "Thank you, young man. It is our 50th anniversary. We came here because our granddaughter told us it is the only restaurant where they treated her boyfriend well, who works as a messenger. She said here they do not judge anyone." Daniel felt his throat close. "Your granddaughter is right. And congratulations on 50 years, that is a real achievement." Reaching the door, Rachel caught up to him. "Daniel, wait. I wanted to give you this." She handed him a white envelope. "What is it?" "Open it when you get home." He took the envelope, intrigued, and kept it in the pocket of his jacket. "Thank you, Rachel, for everything, for being you, for reminding me why I started this." She hugged him briefly, a spontaneous and warm gesture. "Thank you for giving me a place where I can be myself and still earn a living. That is rarer than people think." Daniel went out into the New York night. The air was fresh, with that particular smell of autumn in the city. Fallen leaves, distant rain, coffee from espresso machines. He walked to his car, but before getting in he took out the envelope Rachel had given him. He opened it with care. Inside was a handwritten note on cream-colored paper. "Dear Daniel, 3 months ago I was ready to quit, not just this job, but the entire industry. I had lost faith that restaurants could be genuinely welcoming places and not just factories for processing customers. Now I work in the best restaurant in New York, not because the food is the most expensive or the place the most luxurious, but because here we remember that serving food is serving people, and people deserve dignity. Yesterday, an old man told me that Savory was the only place where he felt welcome to have his coffee and read his newspaper for 2 hours without anyone making him feel guilty. He thanked me 3 times. That is what you built. A place where people feel human. Thank you for not giving up when the numbers went down. Thank you for choosing people over profits. Thank you for showing us that it is possible to do business without losing the soul. With gratitude, Rachel." Daniel folded the letter with care and kept it in his wallet. Something between a laugh and a sob escaped his throat. He got into the car, but he did not start it immediately. He stayed there sitting with his hands on the steering wheel, looking at the lit building of Savory. His phone vibrated. It was a message from Sofia Ramirez, the director of operations. Daniel, the numbers for this quarter are ready. Revenue recovered and stable, staff turnover at a historical minimum of the entire chain, customer satisfaction at a historical maximum. And something else. We received 47 job applications this week, people who want to work here specifically because of our culture. They are not the numbers Karen wanted. They are better. They are sustainable. They are human. Another message arrived, this one from Thomas. The old couple asked if they could make a fixed reservation for every Friday. They said they found their new special place. They also left a 30% tip, not out of obligation, but out of genuine gratitude. That is how real loyalty is built. Daniel smiled, feeling warm tears in his eyes. They were not tears of sadness, but of something deeper. Relief, validation, recovered hope. He started the engine and drove toward his apartment. The streets of New York passed by the window, lives occurring in lit windows, stories developing on every corner. When he arrived home, he did not check work emails or financial reports. Instead, he opened a notebook and wrote, "Note for the future, and for anyone who reads this one day. Real success is not measured in quarterly growth percentages or market valuations. It is measured in how many people feel seen, respected, welcome when they cross your door. It is measured in employees who arrive early, not out of obligation, but because they love what they do. It is measured in customers who return not for discounts, but because they feel at home. It is measured in the capacity to look into the eyes of any human being, no matter how they dress, how much they spend, what they carry in their pockets, and say with absolute honesty, 'Here you matter. Here you are welcome. Here you are part of our family.' Building a business with a soul is harder than building an efficient money-making machine. It requires bravery to resist pressures, to defend values when the numbers temporarily do not follow, to remember that behind every transaction there is a heart that beats, a story that develops, a dignity that must be honored. I lost sight of this. I recovered it. And I swear by everything I value that I will never, never again allow efficiency to crush humanity. Because in the end, when I look back at what I built, I do not want to see just impressive numbers in spreadsheets. I want to see faces that smiled, hearts that felt valued, moments of genuine human connection. That is real wealth. That is true success. May we never forget it." He closed the notebook and placed it in the drawer of his desk next to Rachel's letter. That night, for the first time in months, Daniel slept deeply, without nightmares of red numbers or tense meetings with investors. And he dreamed of a restaurant full of people who smiled not because they were treated as Category A premium customers, but because they were simply treated as what they were, precious human beings, each one with their story, each one deserving of dignity. In that dream there were no invisible tables, there were no humiliating waits, there were no evaluative looks that calculated value in 5 seconds. There was only a simple and beautiful truth. Everyone matters, each one, without exceptions.